The A to Z of cricket explores the moments, characters and history that make up the game, and gives us a chance to look at the power, passion and precision needed to play today. Antigua was the backdrop for one of cricket's finest performances when Brian Lara shattered Sir Gary Sober's record test innings of 365. Sobers himself wasn't surprised.
I was saying to people that he's going to be the best player the West Indies and the world has ever seen. And people laughed at me. People said, oh, he's got ability, but he's not that good. You know, but he's always had it.
Just 24, and with only one Test 100 before this series against England, Lara reacted to his record with modesty.
I was really nervous. I was looking for the world record. I've never ever faced a world record before in my life. And crawling to it was really painful, and I was happy to get over it.
And mounting tension for Brian Lara. Beautiful cover drive. Through for 4. 365. He's equalled Gary Sobers.
Sober's record had stood for 37 years, and his total of 365 had become one of cricket's most significant and enduring achievements.
Sobers waits on the boundary edge. His nerves jangling as well. The field is set. Everybody but third man and long leg is saving the single. Here comes Chris Lewis to Brian Lara. He's gone for the call, and there it is. Brian Lara's done it. The ball rockets into the boundary fence. The new world record holder is Brian Charles Lara of Trinidad and Tobago.
In Australia in the late 20s, the term bodyline meant little more than the curves and figures of the contestants at a beauty pageant. By 1933, it had taken on a more sinister meaning. Leg theory, or bodyline bowling, originated on the MCC's 1932-3 tour of Australia. It was a method of intimidating a batsman by bowling at the body, or more precisely, the head. Following Captain Douglas Jardin's battle plan was Harold Larwood, whose packed leg-side fields waited to gobble up catches given by batsmen trying to protect themselves. The Australian authorities protested bitterly, but back in the committee rooms of Lords, the grandees of English cricket refused to accept that their chaps were capable of unsporting behaviour. And besides, we were winning.
The ball is pitched well to the left and the unsuspecting batsman follows it. And that's how bodyline bowling was born.
Leg theory was partly introduced as a way of subduing Don Bradman, and it worked, with Harold Larwood breaking all records for a fast bowler by taking 33 wickets. Switchboards between Australia and London overheated as journalists sent back copy. The expression bodyline was coined by angry Australian writers, and the affair even threatened to scupper Australia's planned visit. England comfortably won the series, but legislation outlawing this type of bowling was introduced, and by 1934, the key performers, Jardin and Larwood, were diplomatically missing from the team. Australia won, Bradman made hundreds of runs, and normality was restored to the English game. March 1977, Melbourne, the centenary test match between Australia and England. 100 years after their first meeting, England faced Dennis Lillee in the first innings, having bowled Australia out for 138.
And that's out. Magnificent ball from Dennis Lillee. Good ball, but Conti and given out. And that's out. Ball caught by Rod Marsh.
Lillee was almost unplayable, taking 6 wickets as England collapsed to 95 all out. Rod Marsh beat Wally Grant's wicket-keeping record, and a result looked likely long before the Queen's scheduled visit on the 5th day. Another queen, Victoria, was on the throne when Australia first played England and won by 45 runs. Australia's victory at the Oval 5 years later gave rise to the Ashes legend, when the Sporting Times wrote a mock obituary on the death of English cricket. Ashes matches ever since have not been for the faint-hearted. In the centenary test, Australia's second innings hero was Rod Marsh, who scored 110, helping to leave England a target of 463 for victory. This seemed impossible, until the arrival at the crease of Derek Randall. In one of the finest test match innings ever seen, Randall scored 174 to nudge England to within sight of victory. Even the Queen looked nervous, but Randall's brilliant innings was eventually ended by a stunning diving catch.
Oh, he's got him, he's caught him, and what a good catch it was by Cozier.
Dennis Lillee took the final wicket, trapping Alan Knott LBW, and Australia won, miraculously by 45 runs. The very same margin as 100 years earlier.
Whose hands are these? They belong to a great sportsman, to a master of our national game. Only 29, Dennis Compton is already a world record beater.
Dennis Compton was the complete sportsman. He played football for Arsenal and cricket for Middlesex, performing both with an ease and grace that only the naturally gifted can display. The war interrupted much of his sporting career, but in 1941 at Wembley, in the final of the Football League War Cup, he demonstrated the goal-scoring flair that made him a wartime international and earned cup and league honours after the war. In the grey post-war years, his debonair charm stood out and his achievements made him every schoolboy's hero. In his first season, he had been the youngest player to score 1,000 runs, and only Don Bradman reached 100 centuries in fewer innings. And it wasn't only schoolboys who found his charm irresistible.
Anna Neagle leads the film star's tribute to Dennis Compton as an evening news ball at Earl's Court does honour to a star among sportsmen. The Bedser twins, England's Alec and...
Compton was also one of the first sportsmen to become a media celebrity, but it never affected his cricket. As together with his friend Bill Edrich, he established many batting records, including an unbeaten partnership of 424 for Middlesex. But it was for England against the Australians in 1953 at the Oval, and with Edrich at the other end, that Compton hit the winning runs to bring back the Ashes after 20 years. Even the great Sir Donald Bradman paid homage.
It's very nice to know that the English people recognise that they have a genius amongst their own players, and that he is not only a great cricketer, but a lovable and modest personality, and I hope he remains one of your stars for many years to come.
In 1901, the death of Queen Victoria causes a nation to take stock.
A Britain at the peak of 100 years of prosperous expansion. On the school maps of the world, there was more red than any other colour, for it marked the expanses and extent of Queen Victoria's British Empire. From the snows of Kilimanjaro round the globe to Hong Kong, the wealth of Africa was the Queen's. The wool of her shawl came from Australia or New Zealand.
And where the empire went, cricket surely followed. Even to the Trobriand Islands off the coast of Papua New Guinea, where the tribesmen have made their own special refinements to that most English of games. War paint may have replaced flannels, but cricket Trobriand style has become a substitute for inter-village warfare, and the arrival of a neighbouring village no longer spreads panic. This is village cricket as it's never been seen before. There's no problem with team selection, as all the men of the village can join in. But like Lords, women are restricted to preparing the cucumber sandwiches. But here, the crusts are left on. Meanwhile, the men play on. The scorer calls each run and records it on his palm frond scoreboard. The fall of each wicket is greeted with enthusiastic celebrations, and the local media representative shares the cricket journalist's traditional lack of vision. To avoid offending their hosts, the away side takes care not to win, reducing their batting lineup if they come close to victory. But whether on the village green or in the jungle, certain common problems exist. And the lost ball is followed by that even more traditional cricket curse. Rain stops play. The crowd drifts away, and the pitch returns to the jungle. Breakfast on the fourth day at Port of Spain, Trinidad, and England scents victory. With only the West Indian tail remaining, an easy winning total looks likely. Vice-Captain Stewart is confident. Captain Atherton, too.
I felt quite optimistic. Obviously, we were in a good position to win the match. I think it was a pretty good delivery, actually, to get first up. He came striding in, put the ball around a length and it nipped back, obviously fairly out.
Atherton out first ball, and a historic collapse, engineered by Curtly Ambrose, was underway. Even when England managed to hit Ambrose's ferocious bowling, their judgment was suicidal.
Oh, trouble here, trouble. This is absolute disaster for England.
Curtly's a much better bowler when he's either got his backs to the wall or when he senses a kind of breakthrough. And he obviously sniffed an opportunity there. That gave him a lift and the other players around him. Obviously, it has a psychological damning effect on the England dressing room. But, you know, you hope that players are strong enough of technique and temperament to come through that. And on that occasion, we weren't.
Ambrose skittled the England side with 10 overs of unplayable fast bowling, ending with 6 for 24. England, needing just 194 to win, managed 46, 1 run more than their worst ever total.
We were dominated for most of the match until maybe the last day, the second to last day, when we came back and virtually knocked England out. I mean, they had us down, but we weren't out, and you know we got up and we threw a big punch.
That's what makes Test cricket such a great game, and for 3 days we controlled the match and got blown away in an hour on the fourth.
Even India's most desperately overcrowded cities find space for a lush green oval. Cricket is the national passion. Followed fanatically, it's a sport which transcends all social boundaries. On any spare patch of land, children will be playing cricket, honing the skills that may one day win test matches. Cricket was imported to India by expatriate Britons in the late 18th century. It spread quickly, promoted by Indian princes who understood how the game's popularity could be used to bolster their own position. India soon produced her own cricket stars, such as Ranjit Singh and his nephew Dilip Singh, whose elegant technique made batting look effortless. Both played for England, as India did not have a test team until the early 30s. By the 40s, hostility towards the empire was at a peak, and nationalism spread, with Gandhi at the forefront. However, while throwing out the British, Gandhi insisted that some Western influences were acceptable, and cricket remained. After the war, with India struggling for independence at home, the Indian cricket team came to England. Led by the Nawab of Pataudi, they found that damp conditions and post-war rationing weren't conducive to their style of cricket. 6 years later, Indian cricket came of age, as England toured India. Their great batting hero, Vijay Merchant, was playing his last Test series and ending a career with a first-class average second only to Bradman's. India beat England at Madras, their first Test win in 25 attempts. By 1971, India had won a series in England, and today's Indian side performs to packed houses around the country and still relishes beating England, who on their last tour became the first side to lose all their tests in India, to the evident delight of the fans. The origins of cricket are obscure, but as long ago as the 18th century, it was played in a form recognizable to the modern age. In the remote Hampshire village of Hambledon, the world's first cricket club was founded in the mid-18th century. Here, Hambledon would take on all England, and the game began to grow, although the invention of the scorebook was still a little way off. By the early 19th century, cricket had become a game for gentlemen on the village green. 50 years later, society crowds flocked to matches like this one between Eton and Harrow. Then came the old man, W.G. Grace, who became so popular only Queen Victoria was more famous. Grace was the father of the modern game. In this century, Jack Hobbs, captain of Surrey and England, turned batting from a display of strength to a demonstration of technique. A quicksilver fielder, he did much to boost the game's popularity. Test and county cricket flourished after the Great War, and it became less a game for gentlemen and more a sport for all, a process encouraged by the emergence of great players like Hobbs, Frank Woolley and Wally Hammond. In the winter of 1928-9, England went to Australia and brought back the Ashes with some thrilling victories. Cricket's popularity soared, and it was decided to rebuild Lords to accommodate the increased crowds. But, ironically, the next great crowd puller was destined not to be English, but Australian, Donald Bradman.
In London, cricket comes in 5 months early with a bright idea. It's a portable cricket pitch. This prefabricated pitch is the latest move in a liven-up cricket campaign. With coconut matting covering the concrete, experience shows that this factory-made wicket is perfect for all the year-round training. Meanwhile, in Italy, the final item of the Winter Olympiad is the breathtaking ski jump event.
Cortina d'Ampezzo in the Italian Alps is one of skiing's most famous locations. But once the snow melts, another distinctly un-Italian sport moves in. Beneath the formidable Cortina ski jump, the annual Italian six-a-side National Cricket Championship is held. This is the 7th championship, with teams limited to a maximum of 3 foreign players to keep it Italian. Simone Cambino, president of the Italian Cricket Federation, attempts to unravel the mysteries of cricket to the small crowd. While most Italian women prefer to stick to their more traditional pastimes of looking fashionably cool and glamorous, the umpire's white coat has attracted some, as Antonella Elsi umpires the final between Lodi and Lazio. A strong opening Lodi partnership, aided by some sloppy Lazio fielding, puts Lodi in command. After a thrilling finish, Lodi snatch victory, and the celebrations show one area where Italian cricket already takes the lead. (1956), a year that will be remembered for the tension of the Suez Crisis. When Nasser took control of the Suez Canal for Egypt, troops were dispatched and confrontation loomed. It will also be remembered as the year when Jim Laker beat Australia single-handedly, with the best bowling performance ever of 19 wickets for 90 runs. The scene was the 4th Test at Old Trafford, Manchester. England batted first and scored heavily. It was a wet summer, and rain left the pitch damp and patchy. As the groundsman prepared to play, no one was sure how it would behave. The spinners were soon on, and Australia collapsed to 84 all out, with Laker taking 9 for 37, and Tony Locke taking his most famous wicket. Forced to follow on, Australia were 112 for 2 at lunch on the final day. Then the sun came out. Laker's off-spin bit, and he started to work his way through the lineup. Colin MacDonald and Ian Craig resisted for more than 4 hours, but in the final session, Laker completed his feat by taking the 10th and final wicket.
And that's it. The Ashes are ours. Everyone crowds round Laker to congratulate him, victims and all, for he's broken all records by his wonderful achievement. He's the first bowler ever to take all 10 wickets in a Test innings. In fact, he's taken 19 in the match. If ever one man saved the Ashes, it's Surrey's Big Jim Laker.
Kapil Dev, one of the great all-rounders.
1 run needed for his 5,000. And there it is, a scampered single And Kapil Dev has now scored 5,000 runs in Test cricket.
Like most all-rounders, Kapil Dev found it impossible to keep out of the limelight. A flamboyant batsman, he thrilled crowds with his stroke play. Then thrilled them some more with his bowling. He is the only player to have scored more than 5,000 runs and taken over 400 wickets in Test cricket. Before him, Richie Benaud had been the first to break the then massive barrier of 2,000 runs and 200 wickets. Benaud's mantle as the game's leading all-rounder was taken over by perhaps the greatest of them all, West Indian Gary Sobers. He could do everything, and did it brilliantly. His batting and bowling was superhuman. He was an athletic fielder. He seemed to thrive under pressure, and to cap it all, he smiled throughout. In the 70s and 80s, every team had an inspirational all-rounder. Comic book heroes who could win games that others had given up for lost, such as England's Ian Botham. Pakistan's Imran Khan, who regularly topped the batting and bowling averages and still found time to captain Pakistan to victory in the World Cup. And New Zealand's Sir Richard Hadlee. Test cricket's highest wicket-taker, he inspired his side to unprecedented success in the 1980s. Hadlee, Botham and Imran all broke the 3,000 run and 300 wicket mark, but Kapil's record is now unchallenged, and he alone plays on, pushing his record ever higher.
Richie Benaud polishes his bat ready for his last innings in a Test match. He retired as Australian captain earlier in the season. Now he makes his final Test appearance on the Sydney Cricket Ground. Benaud first played for Australia in the 1952-53 season and has been Australian captain since 1958.
Richie Benaud was more than handy with the bat, but with the ball, he was a legend. The best leg spin bowler since the war and Australia's leading wicket-taker for many years. But with his retirement and the advent of pace attacks and limited over cricket, the leg spinners all but vanished. Until this man appeared. Shane Warne was the cricketer who brought the leg spinner back to life. Bowling with outrageous spin, complete confidence and a degree of control unusual in a leg spinner, his unplayable bowling made even the most experienced batsman look foolish. And into the bargain, he proved the leg spinner could be effective in any form of cricket. Warne was the most prominent member of a leg spinner's revival in the 90s. Now, every country has one. Pakistan's spin wizard was Mushtaq Ahmed, whose repertoire included the deadly googly, the ball that turns the other way. India's Anil Kumble's preferred ball is the top spinner.
Top spinner straight through, and Hick is out.
But he also destroyed England's batsmen with the classic leg spinner delivery, leading to the bat and pad catch. Even England have rediscovered the value of having a leggy in the side. But without doubt, the master of them all is Shane Warne. Warne's arrival on the scene has almost single-handedly revived interest in the dying art of leg spin bowling, and his confident attitude suggests he could be cricket's major star right into the next century.
It's different.
I'm very impressed. It's the best thing since sliced bread.
The World Cup, Australia versus the West Indies. The crowds may not be as big or as vocal as when the men play, but the commitment from the players is just as intense, the standards are high, and the spectators like it. It was at the turn of the century, encouraged by the suffragette movement, that women first began to play sports that had previously been considered the male preserve. Cricket was a favourite, as timing and guile were far greater assets than mere brute strength. One of the first women stars was Muriel Maxted, who was gifted with both bat and ball. A Women's Cricket Association was formed in the 20s, and shortly afterwards, tests began to be played between Australia and England. But despite increased organisational and playing skills, up to the 60s, reaction to the game was, at best, chiefly one of condescending amusement.
W.G. Grace wouldn't have believed it. Even Ted Dexter would have raised an eyebrow. Australian women taking the field at the Oval, in a test match too.
At worst, the reaction moved from condescending to straightforward patronising.
Marvel now gets hey-ho LBW. Ladies, LBW is when a girl uses her legs to stop the ball hitting those 3 sticks behind her.
Despite the impetus of a first World Cup in 1973, the game still struggles to gain the acceptance and recognition its fans feel it deserves. It's 1964, a general election year, and while Alex Douglas Hume is banging the drum for the Conservatives, Harold Wilson is pushing for a Labour victory. Comedian Jimmy Edwards is standing as a candidate, and he isn't the only joke, as screaming Lord Sutch puts in an early political appearance. But they are not the only celebrities canvassing for a seat in the House.
Rising out of the ashes of the cricket season is Tory candidate Ted Dexter, hoping to win the seat from Labour's Jim Callaghan. Handsome Lord Edward is proving popular down there.
Handsome Lord Edward didn't prove popular enough, as his political campaign ended in failure, unlike his glorious cricket career.
And Dexter cracks that one for 4. And that really was a wonderful finish to a grand game.
A Cambridge blue, and with gift for all sports, when the mood took him, he could scatter bowling ruthlessly, and he was an effective medium-pace bowler too. He appeared for England 62 times, many of them as captain, including England's tour to Australia in 1962. The team was talented but failed to live up to expectation, and Dexter's aggressive batting, he averaged nearly 50, was often needed to shore up rather than drive sides to victory. Some people describe Dexter's style as reminiscent of the golden age of cricket, when batsmen dispatched both fast and slow bowling with equal disdain. Dexter was able to play swashbuckling innings when runs were needed quickly, or long, patient ones when a big score was in order. But while he was in, England always stood a chance.
Mackenzie to Dexter. And he's out. What a tragedy for England and for the captain himself, bowled at 99. With his departure, there was little hope of England winning.
And with his retirement from the game, England lost their most exciting and competitive performer. If any cricketer deserves the epitaph outstanding, it's Sir Donald Bradman, whose record and reputation lives on forever.
And some examples I thought might interest you. One said, "Dear Sir Donald, I'm 10 years of age and have admired you ever since I was young."
Born in 1908 in Cootamundra, New South Wales, Bradman displayed a natural gift for the game. Rising rapidly from grade to Sheffield Shield to Test match level, he first played for Australia at the age of 20. He undoubtedly saw the ball in flight as early as it can be seen, but it was his speed of reflexes that was at the heart of his game. Quick-footed and perfectly balanced, he always seemed in position to play the correct stroke. A wonderful improviser, Bradman imposed himself on Test matches like nobody before or since. He arrived in England for his first tour with a huge reputation. 5 tests, 974 runs, and an average for the series of over 139 meant he left confirmed as a batting god. His wicket became the one prized beyond all others, but when he got out it was usually after a huge innings. In the late 30s he successfully captained Australia, and his feats made him the game's most famous name. After the war in 1948, Bradman led Australia on one last tour of England. Nearly 40, it was a triumphant swan song, as the great team remained unbeaten. Bradman came to the Oval for his final Test innings, needing only 4 to average 100 runs in Test cricket. He was bowled second ball. He commented that it had been hard to see the ball as his eyes were so full of tears. Such was his standing that he was knighted in 1949 for his services to the game. Don Bradman, a modest man with a ruthless talent. After the war, thousands of West Indians sailed from the Caribbean ports in search of a better life.
The large influx of coloured people from Commonwealth countries has created several problems, but Britain does not intend to call a halt. The government's attitude on the matter will remain liberal and humane, as it has been all along.
One of the biggest problems faced came from the West Indian cricket team, who arrived in search of sporting glory.
When the flannels come out at Lord's, summer can't be far away. Only the weatherman refuses to play, and it's most uncricket-like weather that welcomes the West Indies touring team to the mecca of the bat and ball brigade.
With a team built round the three W's, Worrell, Walcott and Weekes, the West Indies not only broke their duck in England, but dominated the 1950 series. On previous pre-war tours, the team had generally failed to do themselves justice, while still producing outstanding individuals like Leary Constantine, Carl Noons and the batsman George Headley. Post-war, the balance shifted as they opened the 50s by demolishing England and ended the decade with pacemen Wes Hall and Charlie Griffith terrorising batsmen everywhere. In the early 60s, the batting of Frank Worrell and the all-round ability of Gary Sobers were the driving force behind an exceptional team. Worrell was the first long-term black captain of the West Indies and always led by example. It was Worrell, more than anyone else, who harnessed the talents of Hall, Sobers, Gibbs, Kanhai, Nurse, and encouraged the flair and elan that made that team the most exciting in the world and captured the imagination of the cricketing public everywhere.
To the Mansion House, official home of the Lord Mayor, came the men who, under Frank Worrell, here with his wife, have put the gaiety back into Test cricket. They were attending a reception in their honour.
That team should also be honoured as the side that set West Indian cricket on a winning path that 30 years on shows no sign of ending. Life in the Caribbean can often seem pretty laid back. But when it comes to cricket, the West Indies can be the most hostile place to be. The West Indies have a long tradition of producing superb fast bowlers, capable of sending a ball hurtling towards the stumps at over 90 miles per hour, to the horror of batsmen and the delight of fans of all ages. And when one generation wears out, another crop replaces them, taking wickets and leaving souvenir bruises. Intimidatory bowling is nothing new. As early as the 1930s, England caused controversy with their bodyline tactics. Then, in the 60s, there was the throwing scandals. Some bowlers were accused of chucking or bowling with a bent arm.
That was a throw, and it nearly hit Eric.
Eric fortunately survived. Other countries had their own fire-breathing heroes, such as Fred Truman, who scattered wickets and batsmen for England with his pace in the 50s and 60s. At the same time, Wes Hall was warming batsmen's ears for the West Indies. But it was in the 70s that batteries of fast bowlers were first introduced as a technique to wear batsmen down. And it was the West Indies who had the fast bowlers to make the plan work.
The Test series is over. Viv Richards is doing his little jig again. The players are rushing for the stumps.
Cricket has always been a game devoted to records and statistics. The most wickets, the highest score, the longest innings, the youngest player. All are consumed avidly by the true cricket fan. Some are obscure, others are known by everyone. England arrived in Bridgetown, Barbados on their 1993-94 tour, knowing that they would have to break one of cricket's longest-standing records if they hoped to beat the West Indies. Following their humiliating dismissal for 46 at Port of Spain, England's confidence was at a low ebb. Alex Stewart helped restore it with a century in each innings, a record. The West Indies' reply founded on the bowling of Angus Fraser, who took 8 for 75, a record.
It's away and out.
Square on the edge, and it's easily taken by Atherton.
Needing 446 to win, the home crowd was still confident of a victory. Few people at the ground could even have been born when the West Indies last lost a test in Barbados. That was back in 1935, starting a 59-year, 29-test unbeaten sequence. The English bowlers set about dismantling the West Indian batting, determined to win a place in the record books. Brian Lara and Keith Arthurton both made 50s, but for once the West Indies failed to produce a saviour. As wickets steadily fell, the England fans began to sense an historic and most unexpected victory.
And that's it. All over. England have won.
England may have lost the series, but breaking a 59-year-old record must have made the champagne even more intoxicating. In the days of the gentleman cricketer, the game sometimes seemed a very sedate affair. Rather more is expected of today's modern athletic fielders.
Well beat Stewart. Brilliant stop.
Which isn't to say they never blunder.
That was really a ridiculous miss.
As the commentator, safe in the commentary box, is sure to let you know.
And he's gone. He's dropped it.
Oh, he's got it! Oh, he's dropped it!
He still hasn't picked it up.
But for every error, there is a moment of inspiration.
What a catch!
Golly, that was a phenomenal piece of fielding.
Good save. And a magnificent bit of fielding.
The 12, and that's out.
Splendid piece of fielding.
The skill lies in getting to the right place at the right time. But sometimes, just being there is enough.
Do you know the name Sachin Tendulkar? All of you know? Yes or no? Yes. He's a great cricketer and you should be proud that he's from our school. Right?
Although barely out of his teens, Sachin Tendulkar enjoys superstar status in his own country. He broke into the Indian Test side at 16, making him India's youngest Test player, and is already being compared with the world's greatest batsman.
Our first love was always cricket, and I would say cricket is the game in India. It's very popular in India. I mean, no other game is as popular as cricket in India. So when I was young, I started playing cricket and never thought of anything else.
Tendulkar grew up in Bombay, one of India's big cricketing cities. At the age of 14, while still at school, he shared a world record partnership with Vinod Kambli in the Harris Shield competition. Together, they put on a staggering 664 runs. Tendulkar's prolific talent and cool head have helped his transition to the international stage, but he still feels his best is yet to be seen.
Certainly, I would say there's a lot more to come. I know it's a long way to go, so I don't have to worry about these world records. They'll create automatically.
The huge crowds of India can intimidate even the most experienced player, but Tendulkar thrives on pressure and looks set to enchant crowds and dismay bowlers for years to come. In exchange for the best view in the ground, the umpire has to cope with the pressure of making split-second, often unpopular decisions that could make the difference between defeat and victory.
To be an umpire this day and age, two of the requirements is, one, you've got to be stupid, I think, and secondly, you've got to be a masochist, and it's a sign of the times, I guess. The whole aspect of cricket's changed. They don't accept the old-fashioned virtues of cricket as it used to be. The respect has gone out of the game, both for the umpire to some degree and also for each other. It is a shame, yes.
The amateur ideal of fair play often seems a distant memory in modern cricket. The game is more competitive than ever. Television and advertising money have raised the stakes. Any disputed decision can escalate from incident into controversy, as teams are less willing to accept the umpire's verdict and impartiality. To counter accusations of bias or incompetence, a neutral umpire for Test matches has been introduced and was tried out for the first time at this Test match between Zimbabwe and New Zealand.
It was really the pressure of the players, I think, looking at other sports. After all, we are the only international and professional sport not using independent or neutral, whatever word you like to put to it, arbiters.
Cricket has also decided to make use of technology to settle arguments. If umpires feel they are unable to call run-out decisions, they can now ask a third umpire to look at an action replay and decide. Even then, it's not always easy. Sometimes players get carried away by their emotions, but occasionally they remember that the man in the middle is human and just wants to be loved like the rest of us. Isaac Vivian Alexander Richards. For the last 2 decades, the world's most thrilling and prolific batsman. Now, at the end of his career, he can contemplate a journey that took him from his native Antigua via Somerset to Glamorgan and Test match grounds worldwide. That career started on the beaches of Antigua, and it's there that Richards, despite his wanderings, still feels most at home. By the mid-70s, he was feted both at home and abroad as the world's leading batsman. 1976 was perhaps Richards' greatest year, when still only 24, he scored a total of 1,710 runs in Test matches, including 7 centuries. That year saw the full flowering of his style, imaginative, with murderous strength, and a fierce desire to subjugate all bowling. It was a desire that stayed with him throughout his career.
Oh, he's hit that one, it's a huge six, it's going to go out the ground, a huge six to square leg.
Magnificent shot, that's brought the crowd to life. Richards now really going.
And there's no one back there, I can tell you.
He became West Indies captain in 1984, and his formidable personality helped mould the side into an unstoppable force. Occasionally, his character could be more than forceful.
Got him, caught behind, down the leg side, huge appeal, and Bev Richards has given him. I tell you what, the umpire wasn't going to give that. Richards created oh, he ran down the wicket, doing that little jiggle with his hand, and I really did think that the umpire had decided not out and gave the batsman out late.
Richards' future is unclear. But whatever he does, he'll do it his own way, with the power, verve and grace that have characterized his remarkable career. Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram, a partnership that has rejuvenated Pakistan's cricket.
Beautifully taken, what a catch!
Together, these two young bowlers have established the bedrock for recent Pakistani success. Not only do they bowl fast, but they move the ball like conjurers and frustrate batsmen into suicidal strokes.
A big appeal, he's gone, he's caught behind. Well, that was Lara having a flash outside the off stump.
For most of its history, batting has been the strength of Pakistan cricket, with players like Hanif Mohammed and Zahir Abbas dominating. But Pakistani cricket really came of age when Imran Khan burst on the scene, improving standards on the field and working hard for the team off it too. Work which paid dividends when Pakistan beat England in the World Cup final in 1992. It was the country's finest hour. Whether in the most humdrum county match or the most intimidating international arena, Waqar and Wasim are capable of taking wickets, and together are one of the world's most feared strike forces. Allegations of ball tampering to make the ball behave unpredictably have soured relations between Pakistan and their accusers. In spite of the controversy, no one doubts that Waqar and Wasim are two of the world's finest bowlers. Or that Waqar and Wasim will be in the headlines for the right reasons for years to come. (1989), and the Australian team led by Alan Border return home to parade the Ashes before a delirious crowd.
Ticker tape parade is just phenomenal. I don't think we'll ever experience anything quite like it again, and just gave everyone, well, a huge lump in their throat, if you like.
During a remarkable career, Alan Border, the personification of Australian doggedness, stacked up records in Test match cricket. No one has played in or been captain in more matches. No one has scored more runs, and he is the only man to score 150 in each innings of a Test. Sir Leonard Hutton described him as the best left-handed bat in the world. Pugnacious and powerful, only Gavaskar and Bradman have scored more Test centuries. He may not hold any bowling records, but his off-spinners have still produced the odd surprise. Perhaps most importantly of all, Alan Border inherited the captaincy of an ordinary Australian side and, through his firm and astute leadership, turned it into a world beater. Even average players started to turn in outstanding performances, and team spirit and effort was incomparable. By the time he retired in early 1994, Alan Border had left Australian cricket in a state of perfect health, and with a host of memories from one of its grittiest and most competitive performers.
Eight years ago, I was very fortunate to see Don Bradman get his wonderful score at Leeds, and I little realised that 8 years later I should be in a position to beat it.
Leonard Hutton from Yorkshire was only 22 when he hit 364 against Australia at the Oval in 1938. It was a new record Test score. Bradman, a previous record holder, was the first to shake his hand. War intervened the following year. Cricket was suspended and Hutton's bat went into storage. Many fine players were deprived of 6 potentially great years. When peace was restored and Test cricket was re-established, it was Bradman who led the Australian tourists out for their first post-war visit in 1948. Hutton, his greatest rival, opened the batting for England. It was an unhappy series for both Hutton and England, as Australia won the series comfortably. The last match at the Oval was Bradman's farewell Test appearance. By the time the Australians returned in 1953, Hutton was England's first ever regular professional captain. His 145 against Australia at Lord's is regarded as one of the finest innings ever, and England went on to win the Ashes for the first time in nearly 19 years. The following year, Hutton's battle with the old enemy continued as he led a team to Australia. Although not personally successful with the bat, he led England shrewdly and effectively to one of their most decisive victories. For Hutton, it was the fulfillment of a burning ambition. He retired later that year and was knighted shortly afterwards. But the real tribute to his leadership was that he turned England into a professional outfit undefeated in any series under his command. A Zulu greeting is perhaps as impressive a welcome as any visiting cricket team will ever receive. By the late 60s, however, impressive welcomes were no longer enough for an international community which was unable to tolerate the South African government's apartheid policy, and decided that South African teams were most definitely unwelcome anywhere in the world. This then was a significant moment. With political freedom at home, South Africa were no longer the pariahs of world sport, and this cricket-mad nation was looking forward to a return to the international stage, beginning in India. Before their ban in 1970, South Africa had produced some magnificent test sides, and stars like Mike Proctor, Barry Richards and Eddie Barlow graced the international stage. Now the focus is slightly different.
The top priority, the major objective of the United Cricket Board of South Africa is to redress the imbalances of the past caused by apartheid, and it can't be achieved overnight, but there is a movement in South African cricket. It is top priority over a period of time to ensure that all South Africans who want to play cricket get equal opportunities, and we will achieve that.
An important part of cricket development in South Africa is a program of coaching in the townships. Some believe this program is little more than a sop to international opinion, that the huge disparity in money and facilities available to black and white kids will prevent any talent coming through. But stars like former West Indian Test star Conrad Hunt believe that there is real hope for the future.
Well done. I come from where these chaps come from. I experienced the same thing they experienced, bare track, no grass, playing cricket with a coconut front bat, my first cricket bat. And so I want to instill in these chaps a sense of purpose. I want to dream that one day they can play for South Africa as I learned to play for the West Indies.